So you hold GameStop. Have you ever wished that GameStop paid dividends? Wouldn't that be cool? Here's an interesting concept. Now, none of this is financial advice. I'm just showing you some options here of what you can do with your shares of GameStop that would be equivalent or similar to getting paid dividends. So this is the GameStop chart. It's currently trading at about 21.22. I think it actually closed at 21.25, and the aftermarket is 21.22. Now, if you would look at where price action is and where it's been fairly constrained for the last few weeks, between here and here. So something potentially might happen as we're starting to, get a little bit tight with their Bollinger Bands, but who knows if we're going up or down. This is GameStop, right? So if your idea with GameStop is just to hold this for the long term and you would like to get some additional income off of it and not totally give up all your upside, then one of the options to do that is to look at covered calls, right? So, currently, GameStop is trading at 21.25. And, if you look at very short dated calls, the volatility on this thing is actually fairly low right now for GameStop, meaning that you're not getting the best premium. But let's say your idea with this thing is just to hold this. You just want to hold it, the hopes that it would go up, and you don't really necessarily want to sell it, but everybody's got a price at which they'd sell it. Now, the beauty about covered calls and selling them is that you can decide at what point you would be willing to give up your shares. When I say point, I mean dollar point. So let's say $28 is a fairly attractive number that you would consider selling some of your shares, whatever you want to commit to. So now if you look at $28 and on a 1 week option, you're only getting an $8 premium, not a lot. And it probably doesn't make it worth doing it, right? But if you would stretch that out over a period of time, if you move it out to, in about 4 weeks, you're going to get, $46.50. Now that's for 100 shares, so that would be 46 cents a share. Or potentially you go out, which is going to be the equivalent of about 9 weeks here. You're looking at about $1.60 a share, $1.59.50. So just under $1.50, $1.60 a share. Now, if you just intended to hold it, what potentially could happen here? Well, there's a few things that could happen. If the price goes down, you're going to be lowering your cost basis to about, 1966. So as long as it doesn't go below 1966, you actually have not lost any ground or lost any money. Anything below that, and technically, you're going to be down on that position. But let's say you just held it through there, you're going to be down even more because you're not going to have gotten this premium for selling your covered calls. So what can happen on the other side? Well, the other side would be is you would lose your shares, but you get to determine at what point you're willing to lose your shares. And at this case, it would be at $28. So, if at any time between when you write this contract and when it expires on December 20th, if the price exceeds $28, they may potentially call your shares away, and you would be paid $28 a share for your GME shares, and you would no longer own them. So at that point, you would actually make, you know, $8.35 per share if they actually got called away, which is a handsome profit, obviously, you know, if you would have considered selling them at that point. So what does that really amount to? Well, if you run some math, you know, you'll find that, $1.60 a share. We're just going to use that for easy numbers. $1.60 a share divided by 21.25 is about 7.5% over 9 weeks. So we divide that by 9. So that's going to be about 0.84% per week on your money. That's actually pretty good, right? If you take that over a yearly basis, I mean, that's a 43% return on your money in the course of a year. Now, if it would happen to go up and your shares were called away, you would get paid to 28 plus your $1.69, so you would get about $1.59, so you get roughly $29.60 a share, or that would be this number here, $834.50. So if you look at that, 835 we'll use divided by the 21.25 that we we paid for the shares, or what they're currently trading at. That's about a 40% return in the course of 9 weeks, or about 4.3% per week. So what this really gives you is it gives you an ability to, let's say, get an income off your shares through the course of holding them, and really would only no longer own them if the share price would exceed $28 through the length of that contract. Now, what can happen in there is it could say somewhere around this time frame or any time in here, say it got up to $31 or $32 and your shares didn't get called away, you really have no control of them anymore. You have leased them out. They are under somebody else's control. So you cannot sell them unless you would buy your option contract back. And at that point, your option contract is going to be very expensive because it's going to be in the money that you most likely just have to let this thing play out. And sometimes that's a little bit unnerving because you've given up control. You have no longer control of your own shares through the period of your option contract. So if you realize that going in, and you're just going to let this thing run its course, and at the end of the contract, it will be what it will be. Either you will still own it at the current price, which would, who knows what that could be. It could be virtually anything, or you would have had your shares sold off at $28. And regardless, no matter what happens, you always get your premium. So let's just say at the end of the contract, GME is trading at $22. So it went up a little bit, but not a lot. You have gotten, $1.60 for each share, and you have to at least, do 100 for each contract. So you would have gotten $1.60 for each share. You would have taken your cost basis down from, let's say you bought them at $21.25. Your cost basis now is this $19.66. So you've lowered your cost basis. So if you decide to do this strategy again, you actually now have a lower cost basis than what you started with. So if that's a helpful concept for anybody out there, now to do that, obviously you have to be set up inside your brokerage account with the ability to at least sell, level 1 options, meaning that you're going to be able to sell, your basic, calls. And in this case, it's going to be what's called a covered call, right? There's a strategy called the wheel, which is basically going from a covered call to a cash secured put, as you would bounce in and out of ownership of a particular stock. But you know, there's lots of videos on that. This is more of just a long dated, not really a long dated, but a moderately dated covered call option that would be income generating. So you're going to make some money off your stock while you own it, but at a point where you're willing to get rid of it, you know, if the price happens to get to whatever your predetermined level is. If you found this helpful, give me a like. Thank you.